Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Global Gateway Rakuten event. Our Global Gateway event series is meant to give practical advice and takeaways to Utah companies doing business internationally or wanting to expand their international footprint. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Arnold Lee, Senior Business Development Manager at Rakuten, to talk about successful cross-border e-commerce strategies and expansion into new markets through the Japanese e-commerce platform Rakuten. So with that, Arnold, I will leave the floor to you.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Arnold Lee from Rakuten here. And yeah, I'll go dive right into it. I prepared a little presentation that should take just about half an hour, and then I'm happy to do some Q&A with you guys afterwards. All right. Can everyone see my screen? Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So just a little bit brief background. I do work for the Overseas Sales Strategy Department for the Rakuten Ichiba Japan Marketplace. This is primarily focusing cross-border, but bringing U.S., North America companies into the Japan market. So, the brief agenda. I'm gonna go very high level overview into the Japan market as a country, e-commerce, population statistics. Gonna do overview of the Rakuten Group company, and then move into the marketplace itself, Ichiba, and then talk about how cross-border works on the platform and how it could work for you as a U.S. entity. And then last but not least, some success stories from overseas brands. Okay, so some characteristics of the Japanese market. The population, over 120 million people, very high internet penetration rate, almost 90%. And in terms of GDP, the fourth largest economy in the world. Some, kind of characteristics of the consumers over there. There's extremely low return rate. On the Rakuten marketplace itself, it's about 3 to 5% as a whole. So it's quite different from the US. I think US is something 20+%, right? And then consumers, they highly value quality, efficiency, and reliability. And so the customer service expectation over there is I would say generally higher than other countries. And In terms of delivery times, this is for domestic shippers. So if you are shipping from within Japan, the expectation would be that, very fast, right? 1 to 3 days. But if you're a cross-border shipper, which, we're gonna get into, you're shipping from overseas, so that's gonna be something that is have a longer delivery window, usually, 4 to 7 business days, if not longer. So, yeah, just want to highlight those. In terms of the e-commerce market landscape, Japan is the fourth largest in the world as well. So you have China with about 50% of the world's EC market share, followed by the US, about 20%, followed by UK at 3.6, and then Japan comes in at 3.4%. So you're talking about, the fourth largest. And in terms of the trends in the B2C EC marketplace size and penetration rate, so this basically says that, what percentage of total consumption in Japan is online. You could see starting in 2016, it was closer to 4.44%, has nearly doubled since then at 9.8% as of the latest number from 2024. I think the 25 number should be out soon in the government report, but yeah, it's gone up quite a bit, and especially of course with COVID as well. In terms of the cross-border e-commerce market size, I think you'd be interested to know that that total size. This is not just U.S. to Japan. This is total any countries that are doing cross-border. It's about a 2.4 trillion USD market. When it comes to the total transacted volume, and it's only expected to grow, in from now until the end of the decade. Okay, going into the Rakuten Group. Who's Rakuten? So, Rakuten actually is a company from Japan, originally started in 1997 as the original online marketplace, the one that brought Japan into the digital e-commerce shopping age. So from it start as our start as the marketplace, B2C, third party, expanded into wheel of these businesses you see here, with the pillars of communications, membership, and data. So you'd probably be interested to know that we have one of the most used credit cards in Japan, consumer credit cards. We're in the banking world, we're in the sports world, we own a couple sports teams in Japan, and more recently got into the mobile telecommunications side. So a very diversified business and one that has very prominent kind of visibility in Japan and the world. Yeah, and I just mentioned the world. So we have presence in other countries like Taiwan, France, Spain, Canada, US. The businesses are kind of diversified in each. Some countries we have marketplace. Others in the US it's cashback rewards. Canada as well, and the like. So yeah, this is a very global business. In terms of active users, we have about 44 million active users. As I mentioned, we got into the telecom space, within since the start of COVID or right before the start of COVID, and we're now considered, first in overall customer satisfaction. And there's a lot of cross usage rate. So within this ecosystem of Rakuten, a lot of our members use a lot of our different services throughout their daily lives. One of the very unique things I would say about Rakuten as a platform is in Japan we actually have a loyalty marketing program. So kind of similar to credit card programs here in the U.S. The more you spend, the more points you get. We have this point program in Japan that has about the largest market share in Japan, and this is almost treated like cash. You can use it throughout your daily life, going to convenience stores, using it to pay for fast food diners, department stores, stuff like that. So it is something that I think really is makes the Japanese consumer entrenched in our into our business, into our marketplace. Yeah, just a little bit more of kind of like the highlights of our program itself. N Number one, in terms of customer satisfaction, and like I said, just if you ever have a chance to go to Japan, you'll also see like the messaging very prominent in Japan in terms of where you can use these points. Yeah. Okay. Moving to the next part into Rakuten Ichiba, the marketplace itself. So who is Rakuten Ichiba, or what is Rakuten Ichiba? Largest online marketplace in Japan with over 6 trillion Japanese yen transacted. And in USD, that is roughly what 40 billion US dollars with the current exchange rate. And 27% market share. And you know, and very and in terms of like the landscape itself, we have about a little bit of a quarter. Amazon Japan has maybe another quarter, and then the last marketplace is Yahoo Japan. And between the three marketplaces, we are actually comprising about two-thirds of the total e-commerce marketplace landscape in Japan. So yeah, a very big market share in that space. In terms of the product category, here's we sell everything that's to be sold online. But in terms of the prominent categories, we do have about 40% market share in apparel. In supplements, I know that's big in Utah. We have about 30% market share. Cosmetics, 20, almost 24%. Groceries, food, 32%. Um, Books and media, 37%. Appliances, 60%. Daily goods, 41%. Um, and yeah, and then these are the rough, comparisons against, Amazon and Yahoo. You can see in this pie chart. In terms of the distinct differences between Rakuten and Amazon, who I think you guys would probably be much more familiar with, we're very much think of a shop-centric model, and think of it like more shopping mall concept. Sellers have their own brand store, they own their own brand listings. And there's much more of like a discovery behavior to the consumers as opposed to something like Amazon where everything's very product centric. You know, you're sharing ASINs, you're competing just on price on, and you share the same, listed page as other sellers. So it's different in that regard. Um, yeah, and then when we're looking at the comparison between the number of merchants, Rakuten has about 50,000, over 50,000 merchants, and in terms of the volume, as mentioned, 6 trillion Japanese yen, and yeah, is a leader in the space. So despite the fact that we have less stores, we do have the larger, GMS market share. And going a little bit more into the those categories, yeah, I mean, you can see here how it's broken down. Where compared to these other marketplaces, we're a leader in the apparel, supplements, groceries, and daily goods. Yeah, this is something that if you are a seller in these specific categories, I think you would probably best be served by looking into this Rakuten opportunity. Okay. Cross-border e-commerce. So I know this is kind of a more recent thing. So yeah, so I just wanted to basically emphasize that this is not going to be an export-based model. So what traditionally companies that want to expand internationally would find a distributor or go on trade missions to countries to find a local partner to basically carry their product, market the product, retail their product, ship the product, to retailers. And this business model was really promoting the idea of cross-border sales. So what is that? So from the comfort of your own U.S. entity, you're able to sell directly to the Japanese consumer via logistics courier. And because you're shipping from overseas, it's considered a personal import. And there's advantages to that as well, and I'll get into it. But this is not to say that it's not to say that it would be impossible for you to sell shipping domestically from within Japan. But a lot of sellers that get started in Japan, they tend to get started this way to kind of test out the waters. And of course, you would have to have the infrastructures in place to do so, which I'll get into as well. But this is something that I think is a low barrier of entry or lower barrier of entry, I should say, than completely moving your product into Japan and all the costs and responsibilities associated with that as well. So yeah, I did mention there are some advantages to doing personal import. So one of those is that because it's the product's being sold for personal use, anything under the value of 16,666 Japanese yen, right now roughly equivalent to 120 US dollars, would be exempt from customs and duties. At the end of the day, the customs duties are the sole responsibility of the end user. I just want to make that clear. So it would be up to the buyer in Japan to pay for these duties. But that's something that also you as a seller can take on to make it more attractive to buy from you as a seller or to clear up any confusion associated with the duties. But something that I just want to emphasize is totally the responsibility of the end user. And anything over that amount is subject to duties and usually at a tax of like 10%. The scheme overview. Basically, this is a little diagram of how it would look like. You as the U.S. entity, you would be able to set up as long as you're, not a sole proprietorship, you'd be incorporated LLC, a corporation. You can register on the platform and become the merchant of record and seller of record. You do not need a Japanese entity or a Japanese bank account or any of those other traditional requirements for getting set up in Japan. Um, and yeah, you would, after you set up your shop, and a seller would, or sorry, a buyer would put an order in for you, and then you would ship out the product using a courier service. We're pretty agnostic when it comes to which shipping courier you use, as long as it's able to go from point A to point B to the end user in Japan. So international drop ship works. As I mentioned, across border. So that would probably be your first option. Second option would be looking into the idea of importing products into Japan, and warehousing locally. But of course, you would have to find like an importer record, ACP, somebody to do that, and then of course, have the overhead costs of fulfilling and warehousing within Japan. So definitely pros and cons of both approaches. But basically, as long as you're able to get the goods into the hands of the consumer as an online seller, that's really what's important here. And yeah, you have options. So yeah, I'm assuming I'm speaking to mostly a US Utah-based audience today, and yeah. So as I mentioned, you'd be the seller of record, merchant of record. You contract directly with Rakuten, the marketplace, and then you would sell to Japan. So one of the things that's required in order to sell to the Japanese audience, and I can't emphasize this enough, but I also hope it doesn't intimidate, is that you would be required to have Japanese capabilities. So what does that look like? If you don't have it internally, an agency and a third-party agency or a freelancer, and these are both options, or all options that we would have resources to introduce you to if you're interested in pursuing this opportunity. But just want to make sure that because what you're going to be doing is you're selling to a Japanese audience whose first language is not English, right? So you're going to be localizing, translating. You know, participating in seasonal campaigns for a Japanese audience. So, in order to sell online to this audience, the Japanese language aspect is very important. Yeah, and then also would like to emphasize that the back end as well, 'cause kind of the equivalent of the Seller Central, as you would see on Amazon. On Rakuten, the platform itself is also natively in Japanese. There is the ability for you to understand the basics of it using like a browser translation, but for the most part, because this is a native Japanese platform, you would be expected to, do the item creation, page setup, and things associated with store setup in Japanese. And so that's also where as I mentioned, that Japanese support is critical because they'll also assist with this part of the business as well. So, yeah. In terms of options in this space, as I mentioned, the responsibilities would be not only translation, but banner setup, photo uploads, order management, customer support, right? So communicating with Japanese consumers via email, via email messaging. Um, is going to be expected of you as a seller. So, you can work, you can hire, internally, or you can work with a third party agency. In terms of the costs associated with this platform, there's one plan for overseas sellers from the US. And so it's broken down into registration fee, fixed fee, and then also commission. So registration fee, you can think about it as a one-time setup fee, 60,000 Japanese yen, roughly $400 at the moment. And then we also have a monthly fixed fee that's of 65,000 yen, about 420 US dollars. So your totally fixed fees for the first year is 840,000 Japanese yen, roughly equivalent to 5,400 US dollars. And we also take a commission of 8 to 10% depending on your sales volume. If you're calculating for your own, like, P&L purposes, I would put in 10%. But yeah, that's fairly straightforward. We do 1 year contract, 12 months, and the monthly fee would be assessed or be expected to be paid two times, right? Once at the beginning, you pay 6 months at the start of the contract, and then 6 months during the middle of the contract. Um, and yeah, and the this is basically the plan. When it comes to the cross-border operation, as I mentioned, I kind of touched on this before. It is on back end is called RMS, Rakuten Merchant System. And we do provide an account manager to help kind of navigate this as well. But yeah, you can do everything from operating to the consultation part with our account manager. We have vendors in the service square to help introduce you to vendors that can help set you up. And then we also have promotion support and then also logistics as well. Third-party logistics for Japanese warehouse products. So like, if you were to import the products into Japan, we do have like an FBA type program called Rakuten Super Logistics. So yeah, getting into logistics more, as I mentioned, I think the option one being shipping cross border from a US warehouse would be the least lowest barrier of entry. Option two would be to ship from a 3PL from within Japan, working with a 3PL service. And then the third would be working with one of the marketplace fulfillment services. So you see Amazon here, right? So the reason, obviously they're a competitor, but we've had sellers that have used their multi-channel fulfillment, um, service, and they're able to ship on other marketplaces, including Rakuten. So if that's something you're already currently doing, yeah, I think branching off into Rakuten to sell on this marketplace would also make sense as well. So what would it take for you to onboard as a US entity? We will require some onboarding documents from your side, photos of your operation in the US, warehouse, office. Basically, the intent is to verify that you have an operation here. We look at a third party credit report called Credit Safe. They're kind of like Dun and Bradstreet if familiar, basically looking at third party credit, make sure that you're in good standing as an overseas company. And then if you do have a trademark in Japan, we would require you. It's not something required to sell to Japan, but if you do have a trademark in Japan, a letter of authorization for that trademark in case it doesn't belong to the onboarding entity. Like we've had cases where it belonged to the parent company, the trademark in Japan, or their distributor had filed for it. And yeah, we do cross check with the database in Japan when it comes to trademarks. And if there is a trademark, we would require authorization. And in terms of categories, specific ones do have additional screening processes. When it comes to fashion, there's the list of 77 brands. They're very prominent. Nike, Adidas, luxury brands, Gucci, Armani's, that would require additional screening in the form of commercial receipts or invoices. The purpose is because, they're the most, most desired products in the world, and because of that, they are subject to a lot of people selling counterfeit. And so we would require, if you were to sell, if your business is reselling or retailing those specific brands, we would require additional fashion screening. And then also health and cosmetics. So I know Utah is very big in the health and wellness nutraceutical space, and so in terms of what's required, we do additionally look at the ingredients label to make sure it's not in violation of any personal import laws when it comes to supplements in Japan. Um, uh, and then also we look at the label itself. So the label can stay in English if it's being shipped from the US, but we can't have any claims. So some claims, say something is like anti-aging or regenerative, like those things I think have gotten brands into trouble in Japan, and they've had to actually change their labels in English if it has those claims. So if there's any doubt, I've seen companies use a party company to audit the products, but that's something you should be aware of or considering if you were to sell these type of products in Japan. And in terms of the application process itself, the online application, that part, it takes about 2 to 3 weeks when it comes to after submission. After 2 to 3 weeks, if your account is approved, you would be then given, access to the seller account. And from that point on, usually it takes about a month to set up on the Rakuten marketplace. So, if you're working really fast, I could see it happening within month and a half, but on average 2, sometimes 3 months actually to get set up as from the time that you submit your application to just some time that you can go live. Okay, and getting to the last piece of this presentation, the direct and success stories. So I guess I'll preface this by saying that like what one of these brands are any brand that or seller that gets started on Rakuten is expected to work closely with our account manager, our e-commerce consultant, and that's something I think that is different from other marketplaces that we have dedicated account support for sellers, and then the team that would be working on the U.S. companies are part of the overseas team, so they're bilingual, English and Japanese, and they would be helping to work with setting and sales targets, so understanding your sales number that you would like to hit on the marketplace, coming up with a strategy in order to hit it, so what type of campaigns to participate in, what type of ads to run, and basically be there every step of the way with you to basically help you realize your sales goals. So whether that's like a monthly cadence check-in meeting or biweekly, that's something that we do have account support to help overseas brands grow on the platform. Yeah, so one of the big, I would say, companies that has success. Obviously, P&G is very big here in the U.S. and globally as well. But they own a brand portfolio that includes Tide, Pampers, Gillette, Pantene, and actually in 2024, Pampers was the second best-selling product on Rakuten, and our understanding now is that they're selling more on our marketplace than on Amazon. So yeah, this is something that is, Pampers obviously a big, very visible brand here in the U.S., but has had a lot of success in Japan as well. And one of the ways they did that was through, really engaging in terms of the marketing campaigns, and really developing their brand page. As you can see here, they very much localize their products in terms of the A+ marketing and talking about the features of their products, featuring people that actually look like the audience, right, into their campaigns. And so, yeah, they really invested in terms of like the PDPs, in Japan. They've also entered other campaigns like live commerce. I know that that's becoming much more prominent in terms of on e-commerce shopping globally, and they also participate in campaigns in that as well. Another company that had a lot of success as a U.S. seller is this company called Green Basket, PC International. They were based in they are based in Los Angeles, and their entire business model is retailing U.S. Brands, and U.S. and Western, if you want to call it, brands to Japan, and they sell kind of like cosmetics and daily good products like deodorant and toothpaste, oral care. And yeah, this brand Perspirex it was like one of the top selling items on the platform. Yeah, they had a lot of success selling this on the platform. So there's, I would say, hope for overseas brands in the sense, and especially in this category. And they worked with a logistics partner called Yamato and Sagawa. They're both you know vendors for Rakuten, but also very big players in the logistics space in Japan. And that basically concludes my presentation. Thank you all so much for attending. I'm happy to take any Q&A, and yeah, looking forward to welcoming more Utah companies to the platform.
Looks like we have a question from Dalian Rouge. What do energy products claims look like in Japan? Does Red Bull list slash say Red Bull gives you wings? Do they still have the energy drink text on their cans?
That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure about the give you two wings and how that translates to the Japanese audience from if it makes sense like contextually or anything like that. But I believe energy drink is still featured on products in Japan that are considered energy drinks. But yeah, interesting question. To be honest with you, I don't quite know if it does say Red Bull gives you wings in Japanese. But yeah, I believe energy drinks should still be advertised as such.
While we're waiting for any other questions, I know you mentioned, website and product translation into Japanese, and I wanted to bring attention to everyone on the call that World Trade Center Utah administers the State Trade Expansion Program grant. We were just awarded $743,000 to distribute to Utah companies for doing business internationally. And one of the things you can use that grant for is website and product translation. So if that is something that your company is interested in, I'm going to drop a link in the chat to our website where you can take a look at what that grant covers and submit an application if you're interested.
So just to clarify, that's great. Just to clarify, that grant would be able to use for things related to localization and translation, right? Okay, cool. So like
Yes,
in terms of like outsourcing to an agency for work related to that. Yeah, got
I
it.
believe so.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I don't know the intricacies. I just know that translation is a service that's qualifies for
Got
the
it.
the grant. So
Hmm.
um,
Yeah, I
let's
see it.
see.
Another question. Yeah. How difficult is the process of setting up as a merchant for supplements? I wouldn't say particularly difficult if you're doing cross-border. As mentioned, just being aware of the ingredients and the labels themselves. Actually one of our biggest sellers on the platform is iHerb. I think anyone that's in the space has heard of them. And I think, they're having a lot of success on the platform, consistently a top seller from the US. And their thing when they first got set up was their catalog was so big that they wanted to understand like how to best prevent any violations for selling products that violated from claims or ingredients, and they eventually I believe worked with a third party company in order to help audit and proof check their products. So I would say it's relatively straightforward as long as you know the rules surrounding the ingredients and the labelings, right? But apart from that, if you're in compliance with that, there should be not really an issue or a barrier to sell to Japan. Those products themselves tend to be fairly border friendly, in terms of their weight, their packaging, it's like dimensions, I would say. So yeah, I mean, as long as you're in compliance with those two things I mentioned, you should be able to sell.
Someone did ask, are energy drinks popular in Japan?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, they are. When I'm in Japan, I typically am, drinking usually like, when they're green teas or whatnot. But I believe they have, yeah, entire sections with in the convenience stores of energy drinks. Yeah.
And then it looks like we have two more questions in the chat currently. The first being, if you had to launch again in Japan, anything you would change? What was a key learning?
I think for this one, I think a lot of sellers, they kind of underestimate how much, I guess, despite the fact that you can sell cross-border and you don't have to, move the inventory in Japan, I think a lot of sellers, they kind of discount like how much work is necessary as an overseas brand to get like to ramp up in Japan, right? So unless you're selling a product that is very well known, like in Japan. If you're a private label brand or brand that's kind of up and coming, I think a lot of brands kind of underestimate how much marketing resources they need to put into it, whether it is social media influencers or really ramping up their page and providing as much information as possible or participating in like campaigns. I think the undertaking of international expansion, I think, is something that I think oftentimes I get that feedback from sellers that like, oh, I didn't know it would take all that. But it is the reality of brands that are trying to get into Japan. But the ones that have stuck with it, I've seen them, have success. So yeah, I would say that's probably like a key learning from a lot of these sellers that they've shared with me.
And then, do you have a link to an organization that will get us on Rakuten as a turnkey provider so I can just say make it happen?
So I'm assuming by turnkey provider, that's finding basically a distributor for the market, I guess is the question. Like so a one-stop shop. That that business model or that is not currently within the scope of this program. We would like to get there eventually. But I guess if you've ever looked in Japan, oftentimes things are very segmented when it comes to who's going to be doing what. So in Japan, and I want to contrast it with China, right? Because I understand in China, if you're getting onto a marketplace like Tmall Global, for example, there are these TPs that will do everything from the shipping, fulfillment, marketing, and basically be your one-stop shop for your brand on the marketplace. Um, and that type of setup is not currently available in Japan because logistics will stick to their logistics side. The warehousing will stick, to the warehousing side, and then in terms of the marketing operations side of things, they tend to, kind of stick to their own too. And then, distributors that do offline B2B retail, they're changing, but I would say traditionally have stuck with that, and they don't touch online D2C. So I wish I had a better answer for you, but at this moment, we don't have a one-stop solution, a turnkey solution for this. And so the sellers that have made it work, they've looked into, the various vendors available in the logistics and the TP space that we introduced them to.
And then another follow-up question, are effervescent tablets recognizable by Japanese consumers? Are they a popular finished product format in Japan?
Yeah, I believe I've seen them used at or sold at the convenience stores when I was over there in the drugstores, and yeah, I believe that they are a popular format over there. Yeah, so I think a lot of the consumable like supplement products over here, they're pretty much featured in Japan as well, in terms of tablet pill forms and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, um, what would maybe be an interesting exercise is if, I'd be happy to take the conversation to the side, but like also like what brands, in particular you were interested in looking at, and if they're already being sold on the marketplace, because we do have, third party, parallel importers of products in the supplement space in Japan. And so like, Now Foods, for example, has their own store, but Now Foods also is sold by a lot of third-party retailers on the platform. And anything from like gel form to capsule form to tablet form, I think is being sold on the marketplace at the moment.
And then are smaller serving size containers more attractive than larger bottles or containers?
I mean, if you're thinking from a lifestyle, things especially if you live in Tokyo, right, kind of on the go, and if you're carrying things in your backpack or a carrier bag, of course you want it to fit that, and houses in Japan, apartments tend to be smaller as well. So yeah, I think it really depends on your lifestyle, but yeah, I think compactness is I think is appreciated over there.
Okay, and then Arnold, what's the best way to get in contact with you? If anybody has more questions or wants to explore getting their product on Rakuten.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll leave my email here in the chat. I think email works great for me. Um, you know, that's probably I would say the first step. And yeah, I'm happy to schedule a call with anybody additionally after this if they want to learn more about expanding into Japan. I am based in California, so I'm only an hour behind Utah. So yeah, I'm happy to field those calls wherever there's interest.
And then any last questions? Okay, seeing none, I think we will go ahead and wrap up for today. Thank you so much, Arnold, for taking the time to speak to Utah companies today. For everyone who's joined, we will be putting this recording up on our YouTube channel and can distribute that to you after it's up. Arnold, I'm not sure if we can share your presentation.
Hmm.
But if you'd like to do that, I can also include that in some follow-up messaging to the group. But thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm happy to share that after the call. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. Hope you have a wonderful day.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.